What's going on, Color Commentary family, Threaded family? We are here, myself, Markus, Lloyd, Antwuan, Malone, the host of Color Commentary here at the Mosaix Conference, 2025 Mosaix Conference.
Mosaix 2025.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to have these videos just kind of out here on YouTube just so people can get a little taste of the conference, some conversations we'll have. I'll be talking with some folks. You'll be talking with some folks.
Yep.
We'll be talking with some folks. And I just kind of talk. We're here. You know, we're engaged in this conversation. We got to lead a breakout yesterday. This idea of tension to transformation, really dealing with some of the obstacles, or as our other presenter called it, the obstacles.
Obstacles. It was 4 hours of.
Yeah, 4 hours.
4 hours of interface and
interaction,
talking, and all the things. But it was fun.
It was fun.
I had a good time. We had a great turnout.
Yep.
So hopefully people left encouraged and
Yeah.
equipped.
Yeah, I mean, I've been walking around the conference, and people have been kind of pulling me aside and being like, hey, I just want you to know how much I really appreciated your workshop, and I want to talk more about the stuff. And, I mean, for me, like, I love the workshop because I think, you know, we're real big on collaboration. I think the three of us, you, me, and Keith, who works with us, that's just three very different types of people and different types of leaders, different types of communicators. And so the audience just gets a nice little flow of just different ways to kind of look and engage with things. You know what I'm saying?
Probably a good thing if you're going to have someone for 2 hours or 4 hours.
That's right.
Yeah. Some dynamic in there.
Yeah, and the fact that I got to kind of go back and forth between, there's a kind of little teaching time, if you will, but then also very much like workshop time, where you're sitting around tables, doing what we call mining the gold of the community, right? I know that people who are going to be watching these little videos are leaders, right, who are out there doing work in the church, trying to engage in this conversation of the multicultural, multi-ethnic church, racial reconciliation, racial unity, justice. I mean, all these kind of conversations. What were we talking about yesterday? Like, what are some things that the leaders probably can take away with some of the stuff we had yesterday?
Like, just in general, we talked about 4 different obstacles or areas that we think prevent leaders from moving forward in this space. So one of the obstacles was whether the mission was mission creeping.
Okay.
Is the work of multi-ethnic church and multi-ethnic ministry and working in that space, is that a part of the core curriculum of the gospel?
Right.
Or is it extracurricular and therefore potentially distracting? That's one of the things that keeps people.
Yeah, and that's, I know people in churches are asking their leaders when they have these conversations, they're like, hey, why don't we just stick to the gospel, right?
Yeah.
So so it puts that in their mind, like, is this something that is central to the gospel? How do I communicate that? And so that's kind of some of the stuff.
Yeah. And then the second one was like, am I equipped? Not only am I equipped, but are my leaders equipped? And so the question I think leaders are coming to the room with is like, man, okay, I'm bought into the fact that this is the mission, but I don't know that I have the skills I need to do this because it feels specialized or it feels like something that could go wrong if we don't do it right. So do I have the skills? So we talked about the skill set. And then the third question was, well, what's the strategy? Okay, so I have the skills, but how would I do it? And a lot of leaders are in a kind of waiting pattern or a holding pattern because they're like, man, I don't know how to implement this. How do I install the software of this into my
steps, kind of
my church? Yeah, like what are the steps?
What's the roadmap, if you will?
I would say, like, what's the macro strategy and what's the micro strategy for how we do it? And then the last part is, like, what is the cost? And what are going to be the things that that we have to give up in order to step into this work? And is it going to be worth it? And so we identify a few costs that we think that leading in this space demands. And we try to harden the room to make, man, those costs are worth it. It's part of what it means to follow Jesus and to step into it. So those are the 4 things that we talked about yesterday. Yeah,
and I think that it resonated with a lot of leaders, and maybe just as people are listening, leaders are watching this too, maybe give them a little bit of what we did yesterday. I know, obviously, from a mission standpoint, I think there's other videos that we have online in our YouTube space, right, that you can find, like what I was articulating around the mission of God, right? I think that that's a place that we have to recognize first what the mission of God is, and then if there is a mission that God is on, asking the question, is our church on that same mission?
Right.
Does the materials, does the vision, does the mission itself of our church, when people read it, when in our congregation, when our leaders read it, does trigger them to think of this mission of God, this multicultural, multi-ethnic vision in Revelation 7:9? Does it trigger people to go, oh, our church is working toward that vision?
Right.
And if it doesn't, then, I mean, you got to start rethinking things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got to be room in your – it seems weird to say it this way. It's got to be room in your vision to include the mission of God in it, right? And sometimes we've niched down the mission of God to something that is smaller than what God is actually doing. And therefore, when he's calling us outside of our niche down mission statement, we feel like, again, it's mission creep. We feel like we're stepping away from the one thing that we're supposed to be doing when actually God's calling us to something way bigger.
And I think somebody talked about context, like, you know, the mission sometimes speaks to the context. And I love what Keith had to say to them yesterday. It's like all the way through the Bible, God is re-articulating his mission. And that mission is being communicated in multiple contexts over thousands of years, right? So just because we have a particular context doesn't mean it doesn't connect to the mission of God, or that our mission can't connect to the mission of God, even in the context, even if the mission is trying to connect to the context, right? So I really appreciate just that conversation, and it's something that needs to be had because it needs to be dripped down at all levels of leadership. Right. You know, there's a ruling level of leadership, whatever that is for a church, elders, you know, leadership teams, ruling boards, sessions, whatever it is. And then there's the pastoral staff, right, that needs to get it. And then there's a lay leader level that needs to engage these things. So at all the stuff we talked about yesterday, it's like, how do we get these leaders to own this at all those levels, so that whatever they're doing, it's gonna show up in all these places that is happening inside your church. It's going to show up in your volunteer training. It's going to show up in your connection or your discovery class or whatever it is that
or
people
your membership
your
class,
assimilation
your
class or that kind of stuff.
Your onboarding for your elders.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah.
Like how do they get in there? Yeah.
That's
where the rubber grips the road. Like you know, where you say you move from abstract to implement, or from idea to implementation.
Yeah,
when
it's
you
a DNA
say,
piece of.
I was like, man, you know, what's the chief? Commander-in-chief. The commander-in-chief, he can say what he wants to say, but nothing really happens unless the lieutenants and the generals and the captains at the layers down into the military, they're the people who are actually going to execute. If they're not bought in to what's going on, then it doesn't matter what the commander-in-chief does or says, and it's the same way for our churches.
Yeah, and I think that's the fear that, again, one of the obstacles that I think a leader would be looking at and saying, I want this at the level, but, hey, I don't feel equipped, and I don't know if these folks at that level are equipped. And that's where we try to give some competencies. Right. If you've been around Threaded long enough, or, you know, people who take our cohorts or engage with us, we talk about, we kind of envision, like, what is the, you know, the excellence, the person who does this excellently, if you will, what kind of competencies do they possess for success? You know, I think when we were talking about it, we were looking at even like a person like a Dr. King who has this public theology, and we started thinking, like, if he and the people in that era was working and they were getting things done and being successful at helping people grow, particularly across these racial lines, like, what are some of the things they did really well? And so first is mission-minded, right? Like we just talked about mission, like, you got to be connected to the mission of God.
Yes, nothing matters if you're not on mission, right?
That's right. So another one is justice ready. This idea of, like, this conversation around justice is not just a social conversation, but the Bible itself, God himself is a just God. He's talking about justice. And the community that's being built at the very end in the Revelation 7:9 church is it's shalom. It's where justice is practiced perfectly. So it's a just community. And we know that we have injustice in our communities. And so how can we get our churches ready to actually enter that conversation that's beyond just the word, but it's really looking at what's the definition, how does your church define it, and then how is that justice practiced even at all levels inside of your church ministry engagement. So justice ready, mission-minded, justice ready. We have skilled at peacemaking and reconciliation. I love the question that Keith asked in the session. He asked, how many of you have done a message on reconciliation in the last month, and people, like, one or two people raise their hand, and it's like, okay, how many of you have had conflict in your church, in your marriage, in your home? Right. And then, like, you know, half the room's raising their hand, right? So we know we got a lot of conflict. We got to be able to be good at engaging that conflict and being good reconciliation. And those are the tools. Reconciliation.
And that's the core, one of the core purposes for why we're still on this earth as ministers of reconciliation, ambassadors of reconciliation. That's what we're doing.
Passage in there. So mission-minded, justice ready, skilled at peacemaking and reconciliation, culturally intelligent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Being able to, in a diverse church, how do you engage and understand the values of different cultures and how God made them and how they're supposed to work together to image God?
Yeah.
Then we go to historically astute, really understanding the histories that are represented in these cultures, the history of what this work looks like in America, the injustice in America.
Understand the story that's being written and where it's been. And
where your church is played out in that story.
That's right. That's right.
You know?
And the importance of story and narrative and culture and how it gets passed down, how the traumas and the emotional content gets passed down, the things you celebrate, the things you're worried about, the things you're guarded against, the inbred animosities. Yeah. All those things are huge for understanding what it looks like to bring cultures together and abide together in loving community.
Yeah. So it's a great one to engage. So missionally minded, justice ready, skilled at peacemaking and reconciliation, culturally intelligent, historically astute, and then the last is one of my favorites, effective collaborators.
Yeah.
This is a place for us from an organization, I think that's a very unique piece for us is we look at collaboration around this conversation of multi-ethnic church planting and building. Yeah. In the sense that we say we love the multi-ethnic church, we want it to be great, want it to go, but as we discuss, even at this conference, we're discussing this 100-year movement, and we look at the first 25 years, right, of the 2000s as the first quarter, and so now we're looking at, okay, we're moving into the second quarter. Yeah. And so the question I think we're asking organizationally is instead of just thinking about building a multi-ethnic church, what would it look like if we ignited the already present multi-ethnic church that exists in our community?
Yeah.
What would it look like if we took these homogenous ethnic enclaves, created a neutral table where the leaders can come and they can learn together, they can build relationships, they can build coalition and plan action together, and then execute that action with themselves and with the community and for the community, right?
Right.
I think that, but the church is not effective all the time.
Collaboration is one of the things we're not known for. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We and unfortunately, and we've both had this in our history, where when we try to get the church to collaborate well, we lean into our competitive fleshly instinct way more than we do our communal and familial collaborative instinct that the Spirit has deposited in us. And we end up needing to survive. We live in a world where survival is so important, and competition and competing against the other churches seems to be serve that instinct way more. And so I think it's just a lot of work to do there, but when it works, right, great things happen.
Yeah.
Like when you can get that collaboration. So, man, we're huge as Threaded about that collaboration and leading and pushing people into the hard work of collaboration.
Yeah. So I think this is good. I mean, we talked about at least some part of what we did yesterday, thinking about mission, talking about the competencies. Those are really good. There's more there that we can talk about, but we don't want to go forever. Just want to give people a little taste.
4 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah. You can't get it all. We get it all in here.
Hey, man, we didn't need 4 hours. We could have just did this and we would have been fine. Yeah. And
people, everybody who came yesterday is like watching. They're like,
this is the summary. I think I got it.
Yeah. That. Well, there's a whole other section.
I know.
I would say this, like at the kind of maybe just for the end of this piece, like I know that this work is hard, and I think there's a sense that it should be easy, it should be comfortable, and it shouldn't cost us. What do you have to say to that? Just as
we talked yesterday just briefly just about the idea that discipleship, the phrase we used yesterday was salvation is free, but discipleship or obedience has a cost, and that it always has. And the reason I'm saying that it always has is Jesus has been saying that from the very beginning. Even when he calls Peter, well, I didn't say this yesterday, but when he calls the disciples, when he's saying follow me, what he's saying is drop everything and follow me. Yeah. Right? So they leave a bunch of stuff behind. They leave career, they leave family, everyone does it when we get into Scripture, and Peter pipes up, and he's like, man, we've left everything to follow you, right? So the cost happened at the very beginning. So discipleship has a cost, and it always has. And so we shouldn't be surprised when the cost shows up. And so to do this work, it's not if it will cost you, it's what will it cost you, right? And when that cost shows up, Peter says, hey, don't be surprised when these things show up. And so we wanted to hearten people to the reality that cost is normative to the discipleship experience, especially as leaders, as you're leading a context. leading discipleship is costly as well. Not just for you, but for the things in the organization that you're leading.
Yeah.
Especially, as we think about the sort of metrics that we measure for success, like money and members and even approval, all those things, the Lord may come and take those Isaacs and put them on the altar and ask for them.
Yeah, that's hard. That's hard stuff to hear, but it's only worth it though if you understand and are locked in that vision and mission at the very beginning, that you are aligning yourself with the mission of God as opposed to outside the mission of God. Yeah, that's good, man. Good convo. Thanks for leading that with me yesterday, and me leading that with you, man. And with Keith. It was a good time. And thank you, leaders. Hey, we're gonna have more from the Mosaix Conference. Make sure you check out those videos as we keep going.